Welcome back. I'm Charles Lewis, the Austin area realtor who brings you topics and discussions that will enable you to make better decisions when you buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Today I'm with my friend and fellow Keller Williams agent, Ken Manceaux. Ken, thanks again for coming back today.
Charles, my pleasure.
Ken, your experience in the real estate market in Austin has given you a very unique perspective on our current uncertainties in the market because you've been around before the last downturn, you've been through the downturn, and you've been through this insane growth we've seen over the last couple of years.
This is a market I know, that I've seen before.
That's interesting. You said you've seen before.
I've seen it before. I was licensed in 2001. That year was September 11th. So we had a pause for about 90 days.
Yeah.
This feels like that 90-day pause. And then things started to pick up and started to grow. Industry was coming in, jobs grew, and people were moving and selling. And there were a lot of folks renting here because they weren't quite sure what they wanted to do, or they couldn't sell where they were before. And then we went through that downturn in 2008 and 9. That was quite a change. And then we started growing back in 2011 and 2012, and it's been clicking ever since.
Pretty much so.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's do this. Today we're talking about the current market. And if someone is interested in selling their house, I know I've seen, I know we talked a little bit, before we got started here, is there are a lot of assumptions that a lot of sellers are making that, I don't know, kind of prohibits them from really taking advantage of the market that we've got now.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff you're seeing with respect to sellers, because the fact of it is if you have a house in the Austin area, it's still a highly desired market.
It's still a highly desired market if you've spent time investing in your home, if you updated your home, if you don't have a lot of deferred maintenance, if you've put pride into it, you've gotten some enjoyment from it, and you're ready to sell. This is a tremendous market as long as you're pricing in a smart way. I heard an economist say this, and I believe it's true. I don't think you can underprice a home in this market. A seller think, well, if I price my home well, I could get a bunch of multiple offers. Well, that may have been true in a couple of years ago. Still may be true right now, but you've got to price it well enough to cause the buyers to want to come look. And buyers have a lot more to shop with right now. They have a lot more to look at.
That's an interesting point. That's one thing I don't think is talked about a lot, because if you go back in time, if it was possible a year ago, pretty much any price out there is going to generate multiple offers. But before all of that, that was a very strategic move to just be slightly under market value.
Correct.
Because there's a perceived discount there.
Time and time again, I see examples of homes priced in a really fair, below average a little bit. And when I talk with the realtors and visit, they've had a couple of offers, 2 or 3 offers, are not uncommon. Even this past summer when the market supposedly crashed, there were still multiple offers for certain homes because that home had been updated, was in great shape, good location, and they priced it fairly. There are buyers in this market, and when buyers see a value, they want to make an offer.
I don't know about you, but how many times have you heard this? Well, I can always, if I price it too high, I can always come down.
I hear it. It's a myth.
Right.
And you're chasing the market. The first couple of weeks in the market, you're missing the majority of the market. You're pricing it for only about 10 to 15% of the market. Whereas if you priced it for 75 or 80% of the market in a fair, if you can resist that temptation. I used to say during the pandemic, thank God sellers still can't resist the opportunity to overprice their home because there'd be no inventory.
Right.
If everybody priced fairly. Now it's really true. Price it fairly based on the condition, especially if you're a motivated seller and you have a goal and you want to get somewhere. Now's a great time to sell, because here's the beautiful part. If you're selling now, think of all the equity you have to go buy. You have greater buying power now.
Very true. So if we were to begin to sum up some of the things we've talked about, is the condition of the home is going to be important. A lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes, homeowners might defer that until it's ready to sell, and then they start spending a bunch of money or anticipate spending money just to get it ready.
I see that happen, and I can understand why they're in that situation, because what if they don't have the cash, or what if they just hadn't had that kind of thought or plan to update, or what if they just didn't care about having granite countertops or certain types of floors. Or I can see people recover from some of that, and update some floors and update some bathrooms and fixtures and countertops. It takes a little time. It's a shame because I'd love for them to get the enjoyment from that.
Right.
So if you're going to do it, why not live in it and get that enjoyment? However, I have seen people turn it around and recuperate and do within a month or so and get their home and invest some money. Paint is your best friend. It's your most economic. Paint the home, update that, update some floors, and do pretty good, again, as long as they're pricing it fairly.
Right.
Buyers absolutely have more money than time right now. They want a more updated house. Fewer buyers are going to be the fixer-upper type that want to take it off your hands.
So if we've got a house that looks good, in good condition, and it's priced fairly, you brought that up a number of times, and I agree.
Yes.
And of course, it's somewhat debatable what that might be. I mean, because here's what I thought about before we got started tonight. Anybody out there who owned a home in the last year got an appraisal notice from the tax office,
sure did.
whether it was Travis, Williamson, Hayes, whatever. You were probably surprised at the value they put on that house. And there are examples that in order for someone to sell in today's market, that they might have to list that house less than what that appraisal said it was worth just 6 months ago.
They may.
How credible do you think that tax assessment is in determining a value when it comes time to list the home?
Yeah, the counties are charged with finding a fair assessment value for our property taxes. That's their number one charge. And they've done a pretty good job of getting close to the market value, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. What I would say is, to a seller now, is you're in a pretty good market where your real estate professional can find some really good comparables to show you, and recent, like 30 or 60-day comparables. Now, that's still not going to tell you where the market's going. It kind of tells you what happened. And then you and the seller have to collaborate and say, okay, how about we get it at a price where we can get more traffic through in the shorter number of days. There are still homes selling in under 30 days in this market.
If they are priced fairly, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have to discount it 30 or 40% of what it was last year, but depending upon the neighborhood, you have to be aware of what comparable ones have been selling for.
It's critical.
And unfortunately, one that I've seen a lot, I just did a recent video on this, the investor-owned properties. I mean, when I'm talking about the iBuyers, your Redfins, Open Doors.
True.
They are in a discount mode because they want to unload their inventory. So if you have a couple of those houses in your neighborhood, just be aware that those sales are going to have an impact on the comparable number.
That's right.
In your area.
I could see where that could happen.
Now, of course, that may not be a long-term trend, but that all depends upon what buyers are willing to pay. At the end of the day, you're selling in today's market. You're not selling in the market of 6 months or the market in a year from now. You're selling now. And if you have that motivation, which, as you pointed out, is critical, if you have to get that house sold, then it's the choice is if you're not going to price it right, you're not going to sell it.
I feel like if I'm a seller right now, and I'm encouraging all my sellers, sell when you're ready to, when you have your goals, when you're ready to make the change and ready to get your home on the market. Sell and do all your prep, get good data, price it well. 75% of your marketing now is going to be pricing it well to get the buyers in the door. You're going to have fewer buyers. However, who do you think is actually looking to buy right now this time of year?
It's not somebody that just window shop.
No, you're not window shopping around Thanksgiving or Christmas or and New Year's.
Very, very
You're there
serious.
because you're here because you want to transition here. So they're purposeful. So you'll see fewer buyers. In my mind, though, those are real buyers because then you know, oh, that's a real buyer coming before Christmas or after Thanksgiving. That's a solid buyer, and they're a lot more motivated. So why not get your home ready while they're there the first time, instead of trying to chase the market down. If you're overpricing, you're going to miss those buyers. They're going to find inventory, they're going to buy, and they're gone.
That's it. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you again for taking the time to come by. I think
pleasure.
some of the stuff you've shared is very impactful. I know I've found it useful. Before we wrap all this up, are there any other thoughts you might have on this topic of sellers?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics. I would say if I could talk to sellers and say, start visiting with your real estate professional 6 months to a year in advance and really start talking about project. It's project management. Work with your professional, get good advice, update your home. Start well ahead of your plan so that when it comes time, you're not stressed, you're prepared. So a great plan, that's our best value. Help people create a beautiful plan. The market's going to do what it's going to do. So if I could just encourage sellers, do it earlier and get some enjoyment from it, I think they'd be less stressed out and they'd have more success in the end.
That's great advice. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that a year in advance.
At least.
That's a very good. That's a very good tip. All right. So once again, thank you so much for coming by. If you have any comments on this particular video or ideas about things that we might do in the future, don't hesitate to reach out, put it in the comments below, or shoot us an email directly. All of our contact information is in the video description. Feel free to reach out. Thank you once again for watching, and let's make your real estate dreams come true.